I'm Noah from American Trucks, and in front of me I have the Barricade HD modular front bumper with the LED DRLs for the 21 and newer F-150, excluding the Raptor. Now, if you're looking to beef up the front end of your F-150 with an aftermarket bumper, but you still want something that isn't much larger than the stock bumper that came on your truck, then a modular bumper from Barricade would be a great choice for you. If you're planning on doing heavy-duty truck stuff with your F-150, then chances are a heavy-duty steel bumper has crossed your mind as something that could be a great addition to your truck. Now, not only do they protect the front of your truck from any impact, but they also look awesome too, so I don't blame you if you think they just look cool, because that is more than enough of a reason to grab one for your F-150 in my book. Now, this one in particular has some pretty neat features to it. The first of those being is that there is a set of LED daytime running lights here on the sides of the bumper. These make you more visible to other people on the road and really just look awesome too. Now, here on the sides of the bumper as well, you'll see that the sides pull up. This is going to help with approach angle. It's going to keep the bumper out of the way of any large rocks you're approaching, or even the ground if you're going down a steep grade and then need to make a turn. So as far as construction goes, we have some heavy-duty 5/32 cold press steel. Cold press means that it was bent when the steel was cold, making the final product much harder than if you would have heated up the metal to bend it first. And when you heat metal to bend it, it knocks the temper out of it, and it will never be quite as strong again. Then we have a textured black powder coat finish to this. Now, this is a two-stage finish, so there's an epoxy pre-coat and then a powder coat over top of that. Now, that ensures that the coating will be insanely durable, so the bumper doesn't rust and it's protected from any dings or scrapes. This bumper costs right around $700 all said and done. This is a bit more than some of the stubby bumpers on our site. However, you have to keep in mind that you're going to get a lot more protection from a full bumper that covers the entire width of the truck rather than just an add-on to the stock bumper. For how much damage and repair costs this bumper could save you and your truck from, I'd say a modular front bumper from Barricade is absolutely worth every penny. Now on to the install process. This bumper is a drop-in upgrade as far as bolting it to where the old bumper was. It really shouldn't be that big of a deal to someone with a little mechanical skill. It also would be a great idea to have a friend nearby to hold it in place while you attach it to your truck, because this thing is pretty heavy. Now, the install difficulty is going to be 2 out of 3 wrenches because we are throwing some lights into the mix, and I'd say it's safe for you and your friend to expect about a 2-hour install. That's enough from me though. I'm gonna hand you over to one of the guys in the install bay, and he'll take you through the install process step by step.
Tools required for this install include a couple different sized impact guns, an electric ratchet, a hand ratchet, a clip remover tool, a pair of diagonal cutters, a 10 and 19 millimeter wrench, an extension, a swivel adapter, a 4 millimeter Allen bit, a few zip ties, and a 10, 11, 16, 19, and 21 millimeter sockets.
What's up, guys? Today we're installing a front bumper on our F-150, so let's get started. So our first step to removing our factory bumper is to disconnect our wiring harness that houses our fog lights as well as all of our parking sensors. So now if we come up to our passenger side frame rail, we have our harness. We have a gray tab that we're gonna have to pull back to unlock this. And once you have that disconnected, we can just pull our 2 connectors apart. Next, we can remove our 3 bolts on either side that hold our bumper to our frame. Now, on the one on the inside, we're gonna leave this on a couple threads just so that our bumper doesn't fall off before we wanna take it off. So I've got a 21 millimeter socket with a swivel adapter and a little bit of an extension to get these out. And once again, we're gonna leave this one on a few threads just to hold everything in place. And then we can repeat that same process on the other side. So now we're ready to remove our factory bumper. So I've got a buddy to help me lift it off. we're gonna loosen that last nut and then we can fully remove our bumper. Now before we start assembling our new bumper, we're gonna have to remove our parking sensors as well as our wiring harness from our stock bumper. So we have a bunch of clips to pop out our wiring harness, and then we just need to bend back the tabs on our parking sensors to pop those out. So now we can bend back these two black plastic tabs and pop our parking sensor out of place. And then we'll push down on our white tab to release our sensor from our connector. And then we can do that same exact thing for our 3 remaining sensors. Now with all of our parking sensors removed, we can remove our wiring harness. Now this is held in by a bunch of clips running across the bumper, and then we also have 2 connectors on either side that we'll have to remove. So now we can start by disconnecting our connectors. We have a black tab on the top side of this one that we can pull out to remove. On our bottom, we have a red tab that we're gonna have to pull out this way to unlock it. And then we can push down on our tab to release it. And next we can start working on our push clips. So I got a clip remover tool to pop these out. Now some of our clips are broken, but this runs right underneath the fog light and then comes out over here, where we can continue popping out our clips. And then we can get our clips across the front. And then we can repeat the same process on the other side. So now we can begin to feed our wire harness behind our fog light and out through the center. And then we can do that same thing on the other side and fully remove our harness. So our first step is to install our mesh grills. Now we're going to be doing that with our button head bolts with the captured lock washer and flat washer with our nut. Now we're going to press these in from the back. And then we can get our hardware installed. Now I'm just going to throw our nut into a 10mm wrench for the bottom, just to make it a little bit easier to install. And then we can use a 4mm Allen bit and a 10mm wrench to tighten down our bolt. And then we can repeat that same process for the rest of our vents. So our next step is to install our parking sensors. Now we have 6 holes, but we only have 4 parking sensors on ours. So we have some block off caps for our outermost. And then we'll be popping our rubber seal off of our parking sensor. We'll be putting on one of our foam rings. And then we'll have a foam spacer as well as our cap to secure it down into place. So now we can pop that seal off of our parking sensor and install our foam seal. And then we'll pop this down into place. And then we can get our foam spacer and our cap. And pop that down into place. And then we can do that same exact process for the rest of our parking sensors. So now once we've installed all of our parking sensors, we can grab our caps and put those on the end. We'll just press those in. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Next, we can install our 2 bolts on either side that hold our wings of our bumper steady. Now we have a bolt with a lock washer and a flat washer. We're gonna do 2 on each side, and then we can tighten those down with a 16mm socket. And then we can do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can install our top fill panel. Now we're gonna be using our button head bolts with a flat washer. And then on the bottom side, we're gonna get another flat washer and our locking nuts. Now once we have all of our bolts in place, we can tighten those down with a 4mm Allen bit and a 10mm wrench. And then we'll do that same thing for the rest of our bolts. Now our next step is to install our 3 bolts on each side. These are going to be the bolts that mount our bumper to the truck. So we've got our bolts with our flat washer, and then we've got a retaining clip. So we're gonna slide this through the back, pop a retaining clip on so it doesn't slide out, and then we'll be ready to install this onto the truck. And then we can do that same thing on the other side. So now we can begin to run our wire harness. I've got it just kind of draped out across the engine bay. First thing we're gonna do is feed our switch through the firewall and into the cabin. So we have a grommet located right here that we can just slide this right through. So now we can take our switch and feed it through our grommet. So now we can come into the driver's seat and grab our switch. You can mount this wherever and however you'd like. I'm probably just gonna put it right around here so we have nice, easy access to it. So we'll peel the backing on our double-sided tape. And then we can stick that down. So now I've got our wiring harness laid out across the backside of the engine bay. We have these clips running across our cowl that will be perfect for us to zip tie this to keep it up out of the way from any moving parts. And now we can grab a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters to chop off the excess of our zip ties. So now we can take our 2 harness connectors that are going to go to our LEDs, and we have a nice gap right down here next to the battery where we can drop these through to the ground. And then we can just go underneath and grab our wires. So now we have an empty hole here in our battery tray. So I'm gonna grab one more zip tie, just to zip tie our relay into that hole. And then we can come back with our scissors or diagonal cutters, chop off the excess of this zip tie. Next, we can make our battery connections. So we'll come to our positive first. We'll grab an 11mm socket to loosen up this nut. And then we can connect our positive. Reinstall our nut. And then we'll tighten that down with the same 11mm socket. And then we can switch over to our 10mm socket to loosen up the nut on our negative. And then we can reinstall our nut and tighten that down with our same 10mm socket. So now we're ready to grab our bumper and mount it up to our truck. Now for the bolts that we have the retaining clips on, we're gonna slide them through the holes here, and then we'll get a flat washer and a locking nut on the back side, and then we can come back and tighten everything down. So now once we have our hardware threaded on by hand, we can come in with a 19mm wrench and a 19mm socket to tighten down all of our bolts. And then we can pop over to the other side of our frame rail and tighten down our last bolt. And then we can repeat that same process on the other side. So now we can run our harness that we added for our new LEDs. So we're gonna go over our frame rail, and then we can plug in our connector. And now we can grab a zip tie and bunch up all of our excess. And now we'll come to our other side and do that same thing. So now we can reinstall our main harness. So we're gonna put our passenger side over the frame rail. And then we can plug in our harness, push that together, and then push our gray tab down to lock it into place. So now we can begin to plug in our parking sensors. So we'll just slide the connector for our sensor into our sensor and push it down until we hear a click. And then we'll do the same thing for the rest of our sensors, and then we can clean up our wiring. So now we can zip tie up our harness just to clean it up a little bit. We have these mounts where we could put the brackets for a light bar, but since we're not installing a light bar, we can use that to tie down our harness. And then we can grab a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters to cut off our excess. And then we can do that same thing on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Barricade Extreme HD modular front bumper with LED daytime running lights for your 2021 and newer F-150s, excluding Raptor. Thank you for watching, and for all things F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.